Okay, so hi everyone, my name's Alex. I think this is working. Yeah, it is, that's alright. So, this is going to be another video with me just explaining what an operating system is, what it does, and just other various elements of what it is, and other things like that. And hopefully you'll learn what it is, and other various things. Let's get started. So I'm hoping that the audio quality is a lot better, because I'm using the Blue Snowball, which has increased the audio quality a lot more, and it's a lot clearer, and because I know my voice isn't that it's not that much of an enthusiastic voice, but unfortunately I can't do much about it without it sounding forced. But yeah, let's get started. So what is an operating system? So an operating system, or OS for short, is the most important program in any computing device. Its task is to dictate and control the hardware and software to perform tasks. Now it doesn't mean dictate as in like tells everything what to do. Well, technically it does do that, but it dictates it to make sure that everything runs smoothly and to make sure that unwanted processes don't interact and potentially crash the system. It's just used to control the hardware and software and to make them work together properly to make sure that the system works for the user. So the tasks which the operating system has to deal with includes making sure that the input from a keyboard is sent properly to the computer system and is outputted to the screen. Also, it keeps track of files and defragmentation, which is the organization of files in a specific manner so the files are easier to access. Instead of the files all being spread around in the hard drive, defragmentation organizes them all into one specific place so they're easier to pick up and find out where they are. So, and the operating system also makes sure that the device drivers and external devices such as the printers and the USB are compatible with the system you're using. So sometimes, say if you have a really old laptop from 1997 and you're trying to use it with a USB that came out in 2014. Now, what the operating system would do is make sure that not make sure, but wonder if the USB is compatible with your system that was made in 1997. Now, this probably isn't right. It probably wouldn't work, but that's what the operating system does. It makes sure that if it is compatible, if it isn't, and if it isn't compatible, it sends a warning to you saying that this isn't compatible, we apologise, it's just the way the system is. So the operating system is also responsible for keeping the system secure and making sure that no two or more entities such as instructions collide with each other, which could create a problem within the system. Now this is what I said earlier, just making sure that two specific instructions or just programs don't collide with each other so they don't cause problems which are unnecessary. So the next part is a pictorial example. So here we go. So we can now see the operating system going towards printers, the keyboard input, device drivers, and display output. Although it's not the best drawing, it looks like something a 5-year-old could draw, and I'm like 19. It doesn't really help. I thought some people learn from pictorial examples, some people learn from talking, doing, touching. But so onto the kernel. So the kernel is sort of like a module or protege of the operating system. The kernel is the actual part that does the work, if you know what I mean. So although the kernel isn't that well known, it does a lot of work for the operating system since it's loaded first under protective circumstances. So the kernel is booted and loaded first into the system, and it's extremely small, and it stays in main memory. And it stays extremely small, it has to be small to be in main memory, just so it doesn't clog up the memory. And it stays in the main memory to provide essential services. The kernel is used for memory management, which includes paging, demand paging, and process management. I'll explain them in another video, I suppose, because those kind of topics require a whole video on, because they're quite complicated. So it's also used to make a connection between a system's hardware and a program software to make sure that they're both compatible with each other and neither of them are redundant. So it's just the same. So the kernel does this, making sure that the hardware and software is compatible, and to make sure that they can work together. And it is just a very important part of the operating system. And there is things called microkernel and monolithic kernel, which is two different types of kernels, and the majority of operating systems nowadays are monolithic kernels. But monolithic means big, doesn't it? So a lot of the time you'll find problems with monolithic kernels, because if one part of it goes, then the whole goes. And I'll probably do another video on them, an individual video on them, just explain their history and what they do and what they are. Oh god. So summary. So what I've explained just is paging, and I'll just give a little brief paragraph on what paging is. So paging is a mechanic where the operating system copies pages from the hard drive to the main memory. So when a program needs a page that isn't found in the main memory, the operating system will copy the required page into the main memory and put another page back into the hard drive. So when one page goes in, another must come out. Now if you're thinking, oh, what the F is he talking about? This is what I mean, it's paging is quite complicated. You can't just explain it in one paragraph. But I thought this might just give a brief overview and maybe quench your thirst on what it actually is. So I might do a video on that, which I probably will since I've explained it now. And just explain what it is, because it is interesting, because you can go so deep into computer architecture, it's unreal. It's not just, you know, to do with microprocessors. You can go into the electronic parts as well, with logic gates, Boolean algebra, RISC, processor types, multi-thread processing, what else? Parallel processing, all that kind of stuff. And it's really cool and just interesting, because you don't really hear a lot about it, and it's just nice to gain some knowledge on something. So let's go from the start again. So operating system is the most important program in any computing device. Its task is to dictate and control the hardware and software to perform tasks. Tasks which the operating system has to deal with include making sure the input from a keyboard goes to the display output, defragmentation, keeping track of files, making sure the files are compatible. So key kernel, a module or protege of the operating system. It's not well known, but it's booted and loaded first into the operating system, and it's extremely small and stored in main memory. It deals with memory management, so that's paging, demand paging, also deals with process management. And yeah. Oh god, that was... I need to sort my voice out. I need to make my voice sound more interesting. Well, I can't help it, to be honest. It's like quite a deep voice. I just can't help it. But yeah, hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully you've learned what an operating system is, and hopefully I've increased your curiosity in computer architecture and just overall computing, because it does get more interesting. It would help if I was a bit more enthusiastic, but I can't help it with my voice. I can't shout and be happy and all that kind of stuff. It's not who I am. But anyway, I need to stop talking about my personal problems. But yeah, hopefully you've learned something. If not, then just dislike it and say what I could do better. And yeah, thanks for watching. See ya. Bye.